Manipulation kept me locked away from our old home. My name is Shannon, living 1,000 miles away, while trusting my older sister Diane with every single family matter. Because I carried the heavy burden of missing their final days, Diane easily weaponized that exact guilt to maintain absolute control over my actions. Whenever I begged to visit the property in Plano to gather some precious keepsakes, she would explode into terrifying fits of anger. She would loudly scream, "I forbid you to ever go near that place because Mom and Dad did not want you to see the house empty." I blindly accepted that cruel lie, genuinely believing returning would disrespect the final wishes they supposedly shared exclusively with her. Her iron grip finally slipped the moment her corporate office sent her away on an extended overseas business trip. Ignoring the lingering fear in my chest, an overwhelming gut feeling pushed me to break her strict rules by driving straight through the night toward Texas. I fully expected to find a quiet, abandoned building waiting peacefully at the end of the familiar street. Instead, when I pulled up to the address, my heart completely dropped into my stomach. Before we dive into exactly how I exposed her unbelievable greed, please hit that subscribe button. Leaving a quick like helps me share more real stories about surviving family betrayal with you. The deafening roar of heavy excavator engines shattering the familiar neighborhood silence violently pulled me out of my paralyzing shock. I immediately kicked my car door open and sprinted straight across the overgrown lawn toward the massive yellow machine threatening our old front porch. Waving my arms frantically above my head, forced the confused operator to kill the engine while a frustrated construction foreman rushed over to intercept me. I firmly demanded they halt all demolition work on the property immediately because this house still belonged to my deceased parents. The irritated foreman insisted they possessed valid city permits before pulling out his phone to contact the individual responsible for funding the project. My stubborn refusal to step away from the wooden porch steps left him no choice but to summon the new owner, Mr. Vance, a local real estate developer, directly to the chaotic scene. Waiting on that ruined grass felt like an absolute eternity, while my mind desperately tried to comprehend the mechanical nightmare unfolding around me. About 20 minutes later, a sleek black truck pulled up to the curb, and Mr. Vance stepped out looking incredibly annoyed by the unexpected work stoppage. He marched across the lawn clutching a leather folder while demanding to know why a random stranger was trespassing on his active commercial construction site. I stood my ground and identified myself as the youngest daughter of the original homeowners while explaining that a massive legal mistake was happening right now. Mr. Vance let out a heavy sigh of exasperation before bluntly stating that he purchased the lot lawfully through a standard transaction several months ago. He unzipped his folder to present a pristine copy of the official property sales contract, just to prove his undisputed authority over the contested land. My trembling hands reached out to snatch the quitclaim deed from his grip, so I could examine the binding legal text for myself. My vision completely blurred as I scanned down to the bottom of the page where the primary seller information was clearly printed in bold black ink. A sickening wave of nausea hit my stomach when I realized the sole individual listed as receiving the entire financial payout was Diane. She had somehow bypassed every legal safeguard to quietly sell the home we grew up in without ever mentioning a single word about the transaction to me. The staggering reality of her calculated betrayal washed over me, but I knew losing my temper right now would not save the vulnerable building. I forced myself to swallow the burning rage in my throat and looked Mr. Vance directly in the eyes with absolute unwavering conviction. This document you are holding is the direct result of fraudulent activity because my parents never authorized the sale of this estate to anyone before they passed away. I told him firmly while pointing at the questionable signatures. I paid a substantial amount of money to acquire this land from the recognized legal heir, so your personal family disputes are completely irrelevant to my ongoing business operations. Mr. Vance argued defensively while attempting to snatch the paperwork back. I refused to let go of the document while quickly explaining that my sister had deliberately manipulated the estate situation entirely behind my back. I firmly warned him that any further development on this highly disputed lot would inevitably drag his entire company into a massive federal fraud investigation. I detailed how proceeding with the physical demolition today might actually result in him actively destroying critical evidence tied to a severe case of real estate theft. His confident posture visibly shifted as the sudden threat of endless courtroom litigation and permanently frozen corporate assets began to vastly outweigh his immediate desire to clear the lot. I pleaded with him to grant me just 3 days to gather undeniable proof showing exactly how Diane orchestrated this elaborate financial crime against our family. Mr. Vance stared quietly at the idle, heavy machinery and then looked back at the contested documents in my hands before letting out another frustrated breath. He reluctantly agreed to officially pause the demolition crew until Wednesday afternoon, but made sure to clarify his firm position on the complicated matter. He issued a stern warning that those excavators would tear through the living room walls immediately if I failed to produce concrete evidence of forgery by his strict deadline. Knowing the legal clock was officially ticking against me gave me the sudden burst of desperate adrenaline needed to uncover the dark truth hidden away inside the county property archives. Early the next morning, I arrived at the County Real Estate Records Department determined to uncover the absolute truth myself. Approaching the heavy wooden counter requires filling out a formal request form to pull the original property transfer deed from the government archives. The clerk eventually handed over a thick manila folder containing the exact legal paperwork utilized to transfer our family estate into unfamiliar hands. Taking a seat at a quiet corner desk allowed me to carefully spread out the official documents right next to several old handwritten letters. Keeping these precious letters from Mom and Dad safe in my glove box over the years finally provided the perfect reference material for this exact moment. Sliding my finger down the final page of the contract revealed the 2 crucial lines where the previous owners supposedly authorized the massive transaction. The ink strokes forming their names looked completely wrong because the awkward scribbles lacked the familiar fluid cursive loops they always used. Staring closer at the forced handwriting confirmed my deepest suspicions about Diane manipulating the entire legal process while completely isolating me from the situation. My eyes shifted toward the official notary public stamp, authenticating the fraudulent signatures at the very bottom of the contested legal page. The printed name belonging to the notary immediately caught my attention because she was the exact same secretary working directly under Diane at her corporate office. Discovering this blatant conflict of interest proved that my older sibling orchestrated a highly illegal scheme, using her own loyal employees as complicit witnesses. Realizing the massive scale of her deception prompted me to pull out my cell phone right there in the quiet archival reading room. Dialing the familiar number connected me instantly to my best friend Sarah, whose current position at a prestigious downtown law firm made her incredibly resourceful. I desperately need your professional help right now, Sarah, so please connect me with a top independent handwriting expert immediately because I just uncovered forged property documents. Okay, I will send his direct contact information to you right this second because you are currently holding undeniable evidence of a major federal felony. Receiving the digital business card from Sarah gave me the exact leverage required to expose the devastating financial crime committed against my deceased parents. Leaving the government building with certified copies of the fraudulent deed allowed me to drive straight toward the private forensic laboratory across town. The senior forensic document examiner listened intently to my urgent situation before accepting the hefty rush fee to prioritize my specific legal case today. Handing over both the suspicious contract copies alongside the authentic vintage letters provided his sophisticated analytical software with everything needed for a comprehensive comparison. Pacing around the sterile laboratory waiting area consumed my entire afternoon while the expert meticulously analyzed pen pressure along with microscopic stroke variations. Every passing hour amplified the burning anger building inside my chest regarding how easily Diane assumed she could steal our shared heritage without facing consequences. The sheer audacity required to forge a deceased individual's signature demonstrated a level of greed that permanently destroyed any remaining shred of sisterly affection. Shortly before the laboratory officially closed for the evening, the senior examiner finally emerged from his secure testing room holding a sealed white envelope. He handed me the comprehensive forensic report while verbally confirming that the signatures on the real estate transfer deed failed every single authenticity metric. The detailed scientific analysis definitively concluded with absolute certainty that neither Mom nor Dad ever held the pen that signed away our family home. Reading the official certification of forgery provided an overwhelming sense of vindication mixed with the heartbreaking reality of ultimate familial betrayal. Clutching the thick envelope tightly against my chest secured the ultimate legal weapon required to completely dismantle the arrogant empire Diane built on lies. Driving back to my temporary hotel room felt entirely different now that the initial paralyzing shock had fully transformed into cold, calculated determination. Knowing the undeniable truth was formally documented by a recognized legal authority meant Mr. Vance would be forced to take my previous warnings seriously. Preparing for the upcoming confrontation required organizing all these newly acquired documents into a flawless presentation that no expensive corporate lawyer could ever dismantle. The undeniable proof of her malicious financial tampering sat heavily on the passenger seat as the setting sun cast long shadows across the Texas highway. Exactly at 2 p.m, I walked into the incredibly stuffy temporary project management office belonging to Mr. Vance, clutching a thick stack of freshly printed official files. Dropping the certified forensic handwriting analysis report heavily onto his cluttered mahogany desk immediately commanded his full, undivided attention. The loud thud echoed through the small trailer while I firmly explained that his recent real estate purchase was now officially classified as active criminal evidence. Watching him read through the professional laboratory conclusions revealed a sudden shift from casual arrogance to genuine corporate panic. His entire multi-million-dollar residential subdivision development currently rested upon a completely voided contract featuring signatures explicitly forged by an ambitious thief. Sitting directly across from his wide leather chair allowed me to clearly outline the devastating legal nightmare rapidly approaching his lucrative company. Filing a formal lawsuit within the strict Texas state court system would trigger an immediate judicial injunction freezing all construction activity across his entire designated work zone. A massive federal fraud investigation would leave those expensive yellow excavators rusting on the overgrown lawn for several years, while specialized lawyers endlessly debated the contaminated property title. The absolute last thing an ambitious real estate developer wants is a highly publicized criminal scandal permanently halting their projected corporate revenue streams. Your project will be suspended indefinitely the moment I file a criminal complaint, but I have a quick solution for you to get your money back and walk away safely. I proposed with unwavering confidence. Mr. Vance rubbed his temples in frustration before replying, "Do you seriously want to buy back this entire complicated mess using your own money? Fine, I will agree as long as I do not get dragged into your family's drawn-out lawsuits." Taking a deep breath helped me steady my racing heart before laying out the exact financial terms of my rather unorthodox proposition. Draining my entire personal life savings account would provide enough liquid capital to repurchase the disputed property for the exact monetary value he originally transferred to Diane. Covering his wasted time, required offering an additional penalty fee to adequately compensate his construction firm for the frustrating demolition delays they experienced this week. Buying the house back directly from an unwitting victim of fraud represented the fastest possible method to secure the physical building before the slow legal system intervened. Presenting this mutually beneficial escape route provided him with a highly attractive alternative to losing massive amounts of corporate capital during a prolonged court battle. Ensuring the structural safety of my childhood home remained my top priority, far above seeking immediate financial restitution from the greedy person who actually stole the funds. Handing over a massive cashier's check came with a strict list of non-negotiable legal demands designed to permanently trap the manipulative perpetrator. Accepting my generous financial buyout required Mr. Vance to officially sign a legally binding affidavit detailing every single aspect of his previous illicit transaction with Diane. The sworn document needed to explicitly state her aggressive negotiation tactics, along with her desperate rush to liquidate the inherited asset vastly below its actual market value. Securing his written testimony essentially transformed an angry developer into a star witness capable of completely destroying her pathetic fabricated defense strategy. He also needed to firmly pledge his mandatory appearance in a formal court of law to testify directly against her fraudulent activities whenever the local prosecutor called him. His detailed first-hand account regarding the suspicious nature of the rushed closing process would serve as the foundational cornerstone for the upcoming criminal indictment against my sister. Watching the calculating businessman weigh his limited options took only a few tense moments before pure corporate pragmatism finally won the internal battle. He quickly realized that accepting a guaranteed full refund immensely outweighed the massive financial risks associated with defending a stolen property deed in front of a federal judge. Calling his corporate attorney into the cramped office initiated the immediate drafting process for our mutual settlement agreement, alongside the required sworn testimony documents. We spent several exhausting hours reviewing every single legal clause to ensure the transfer of ownership was absolutely bulletproof against any future challenges. Spending my hard-earned savings felt surprisingly empowering because every single dollar spent was a necessary investment toward achieving absolute justice for my deceased parents. Leaving that sweltering construction trailer with the freshly signed legal agreements finally gave me the ultimate leverage needed to execute the next crucial phase of my plan. 2 days later, I brought the entire house repurchase agreement and the forged evidence to meet directly with my lawyer, Mr. Henderson. Presenting this undeniable mountain of criminal proof prompted him to immediately suspend his other scheduled appointments to prioritize my urgent case. Mr. Henderson wasted absolutely no time reviewing the authenticated laboratory reports before rapidly drafting an emergency ex parte petition for the presiding county judge. Filing this urgent judicial motion compelled the local court to instantly freeze every single penny of the illicit real estate profits currently resting inside the personal bank accounts belonging to Diane. Executing this rapid financial lockdown practically guaranteed that my greedy sibling could never secretly transfer or hide the stolen wealth offshore before facing severe legal consequences. Following the successful asset freeze, my experienced attorney aggressively shifted his strategic focus toward meticulously preparing the formal civil lawsuit demanding extensive punitive damages. He simultaneously drafted a comprehensive criminal complaint explicitly detailing multiple felony counts of federal wire fraud alongside aggravated identity theft charges. Structuring these aggressive legal filings required absolute precision to ensure every piece of gathered evidence perfectly satisfied the rigorous evidentiary standards mandated by the United States justice system. Establishing the wire fraud charges heavily relied upon proving she utilized electronic banking systems to illegally transfer the unearned property funds across state lines. We have successfully locked down her financial accounts completely, so she cannot possibly escape, Mr. Henderson explained while organizing the hefty stack of official paperwork. Now your crucial task is to subtly force her to voluntarily confess on tape without asking any blatantly coercive questions. I completely understand the legal assignment, I replied with a remarkably steady voice while securing the confidential legal files inside my leather briefcase. I will let her confidently dig her own grave right inside my living room without raising any initial suspicions tonight. Driving back to my private apartment required shifting my internal mindset from a grieving daughter into a cold, calculating investigator preparing a flawless trap. The moment I walked through my front door, I unboxed a brand new wide-angle security camera purchased specifically for capturing this highly anticipated confrontation. Carefully disguising the miniature recording device behind several thick hardcover novels on the living room bookshelf provided a perfectly unobstructed view of the entire central seating area. Syncing the hidden equipment directly to a secure remote cloud server guaranteed the digital footage would remain absolutely safe even if the physical camera was discovered and violently destroyed. Testing the concealed microphone multiple times ensured the sensitive audio equipment would capture every single whispered lie or arrogant boast perfectly, without any noticeable background static. Completing the covert surveillance setup left only one final crucial step to seamlessly initiate the inevitable criminal downfall of my treacherous sister. Picking up my cell phone required taking a deep breath to steady my slightly shaking hands before typing out a deceptively cheerful text message. I carefully crafted the digital invitation utilizing my typical innocent tone to completely mask the brewing storm of justified vengeance waiting for her arrival. The text casually mentioned that I bought a very special welcome back gift, specifically to celebrate the successful conclusion of her extended corporate business trip. Pressing the send button essentially locked the inescapable legal trap into place because her massive narcissistic ego would never allow her to reject an offering of free adoration. Watching the delivered notification pop up on my glowing screen confirmed that the most stressful phase of my solitary investigation was finally approaching its dramatic climax. A quick reply flashed across my phone just moments later confirming she would happily stop by my apartment for a quick visit later this evening. Knowing she was willingly walking right into a federal wire fraud indictment gave me an overwhelming sense of profound calm instead of the usual crippling anxiety. Staring at the strategically positioned bookshelf one last time verified that nothing in the perfectly arranged living room looked even slightly out of the ordinary. Everything was officially set for a devastating family reunion that would permanently destroy the fake supportive image she carefully maintained for the past 2 years. That weekend, right at 8 o'clock in the evening, the sharp ringing of my apartment doorbell signaled that the fraudster had willingly stepped into my carefully prepared trap. Opening the heavy wooden door revealed Diane confidently striding inside, wearing an incredibly expensive designer business suit while carrying a luxury leather handbag. Taking a seat on my living room sofa allowed her to immediately start bragging about the corporate success of her recent overseas trip. Displaying an exaggerated look of sisterly concern provided her with the perfect opening to ask a few superficial questions regarding my current personal life. Listening to her fake empathy required an immense amount of physical restraint just to maintain a perfectly neutral expression on my face. Offering her a glass of chilled water presented the ideal, natural opportunity to smoothly guide our casual conversation toward a much heavier subject. Pouring the drink gave me a valid excuse to intentionally bring up the lingering emotional pain surrounding the sudden loss of Mom and Dad. Looking directly into her eyes allowed me to express a seemingly innocent desire to simply drive down to Plano just to see the old property one last time. Hearing that specific geographical location caused the cheerful corporate smile to instantly vanish from her meticulously contoured face. Slamming her glass down onto the glass coffee table signaled the immediate return of her aggressively controlling personality. How many times have I told you this exact same thing about avoiding that place already? Stop digging up the past because our parents strictly forbade you from returning there entirely for your own good. Was it truly for my own good? Or was it just a convenient excuse to hide the massive secret that you completely forged their signatures to sell our childhood home to commercial developers? Watching her eyes widen in absolute shock confirmed that my direct accusation had successfully shattered her carefully constructed illusion of complete control. Refusing to give her even a single second to formulate another manipulative lie required taking immediate physical action. Reaching under the coffee table allowed me to retrieve the thick manila folder containing the undeniable photographic evidence of her monumental greed. Tossing the glossy photographs of the massive yellow excavators directly onto the table forced her to visually confront the physical destruction of our family legacy. Following up the demolition pictures with the certified copy of the fraudulent property deed completely eliminated any remaining room for her usual deceptive tactics. Pointing specifically at the forged ink strokes at the bottom of the page clearly demonstrated my absolute certainty regarding her extensive criminal actions. Seeing the official legal documentation printed in stark black ink caused the color to completely drain from her usually vibrant complexion. Experiencing this sudden loss of narrative dominance left her sitting there in total silence, while her brain desperately scrambled for a plausible explanation. Maintaining intense eye contact ensured she fully understood that her lengthy reign of emotional terror over my life was permanently finished. Observing her frantic physical reactions provided exactly what the hidden wide-angle camera needed to establish her undeniable guilt beyond any reasonable doubt. Breathing heavily through her nose betrayed the rising panic rapidly consuming her previously untouchable sense of corporate superiority. Recognizing the sheer magnitude of the corner she currently occupied forced her to aggressively shift her physical posture toward a highly defensive position. Crossing her arms tightly against her chest highlighted a desperate subconscious attempt to protect herself from the overwhelming weight of the presented evidence. Sitting frozen on the sofa proved that confronting a narcissist with undeniable factual proof completely short-circuits their established manipulation protocols. Waiting for her inevitable verbal response felt like watching a trapped predator desperately calculating its final chance at securing a miraculous escape. Glaring at the scattered documents revealed the precise moment her arrogant mind realized the depth of the legal jeopardy she currently faced. Knowing the hidden recording device captured every single microscopic shift in her facial expression provided an incredible sense of ultimate vindication. Demanding an explanation for the fake notary stamp forced her to look away from the damning paperwork resting between us. Refusing to break the suffocating silence intentionally amplified the psychological pressure building rapidly inside the confined space of my living room. Watching her fingers nervously pick at the fabric of her expensive suit exposed the cracking foundation of her lifelong deception. Presenting the truth so bluntly completely stripped away her ability to use my previous feelings of guilt as a reliable weapon. Securing this exact visual reaction on a secure cloud server guaranteed the criminal prosecution would proceed without major complications. A few seconds of heavy silence passed before the thick atmosphere was violently torn apart by a forced and bitter laugh from Diane. Watching her face contort with pure malice revealed the true monster hidden behind those expensive layers of designer makeup, along with her calculated corporate professionalism. Realizing that her elaborate lies were no longer effective caused her fake confidence to crumble into a heap of defensive aggression as she leaned across the table. Her voice dropped several octaves into a chilling rasp while she began justifying her calculated theft of our entire family legacy without showing a single shred of genuine remorse. That is exactly right. I sold the property because I was the one who stayed behind to care for them while you ran away to pursue your own selfish career. So I deserve every single penny from that rotting house. She screamed with a level of hatred that permanently severed any remaining connection between us. Hearing her admit to the crime so easily provided the ultimate legal confirmation that my hidden recording equipment needed to secure a conviction. I sat perfectly still while watching her pace around my small living room, like a trapped animal searching for a way to bite its way out of a cage. She continued shouting about her perceived sacrifices, while completely ignoring the fact that her actions were illegal under every possible interpretation of Texas state law. Maintaining a cold, detached expression allowed me to wait for the exact moment her manic energy finally started to drain away into desperate fear. I leaned forward slightly to deliver the final crushing blow to her rapidly disintegrating world while maintaining absolute eye contact with her bloodshot eyes. You deserve to rot in a prison cell instead because the police are already standing right outside that door, while every single word of your confession was captured by my hidden security cameras. The sudden realization of her precarious situation caused her to stop pacing immediately while her mouth hung open in a silent scream of pure terror. I informed her that Mr. Vance had already handed over the original forged documents to the district attorney as part of his own cooperation agreement to avoid prosecution. Every single cent of the real estate profits she so carefully hid away was officially frozen by a court order issued early this morning by a federal judge. The arrogant corporate mask she wore for years finally shattered into a million pieces as the crushing weight of reality settled onto her slumped shoulders. Diane suddenly lost the strength to stand while her legs gave out, causing her to collapse onto the hardwood floor in a pathetic heap of designer silk. The bitter laughter from earlier transformed into desperate, gasping sobs as she reached out to grab the hem of my jeans with trembling hands. She began wailing about our shared childhood, begging for mercy in the name of Mom and Dad, while promising to return everything if I just dropped the criminal charges. Hearing her invoke the names of our deceased parents after she had just spit on their memory by selling their home felt like a physical slap to the face. I pulled my leg away from her desperate grasp while looking down at her with an absolute void of emotion instead of the pity she expected to receive. She continued babbling about how family members should protect each other from the harshness of the legal system, regardless of the mistakes made in the heat of the moment. My refusal to respond with anything other than silence only fueled her rising panic as she realized that her manipulative tactics were completely useless against my cold determination. The loud, rhythmic pounding on my apartment door signaled that the local authorities were finally ready to take her into custody. 2 uniformed police officers stepped into the room holding a signed arrest warrant, while Diane scrambled backward toward the sofa in a futile attempt to hide. Seeing the cold metal handcuffs being pulled from their utility belts finally forced her to accept that her life of luxury was coming to a very abrupt end. I stood by the window watching as they read her the Miranda rights, while she continued to beg me for one last chance to make things right between us. The betrayal she committed was too deep for any apology to ever fix, while the house in Plano remained a silent witness to her ultimate greed. Watching her being led out of my apartment in handcuffs provided a strange mixture of profound sadness, the ultimate sense of long-awaited justice. She was no longer the powerful older sister who dictated every aspect of my life through fear-guilt, but simply another criminal facing the consequences of her choices. This final moment of confrontation officially closed the chapter on her manipulation, while opening a new path for me to reclaim the family history she tried to destroy. I watched the squad car pull away from the curb until the flashing blue-red lights disappeared into the dark night of the city. 6 months after that suffocating night of intense confrontation, I stood on the porch in Plano taking a deep breath while watching workers repaint the new wooden siding. The federal court recently handed down a remarkably severe 10-year prison sentence for Diane regarding her multiple felony counts of wire fraud along with aggravated identity theft. Witnessing her being led away in shackles provided a grim conclusion to the prestigious corporate career she once valued above her own family members. She officially lost every professional license she worked decades to acquire, while the remaining extended family members chose to disown her entirely after the news broke. Securing the solid legal files from Mr. Henderson combined with the mandatory cooperation of Mr. Vance, allowed me to finally complete the repurchase of our family estate. Walking through the front door as the sole rightful owner felt like reclaiming a significant piece of my soul that had been stolen. I immediately hired a local landscaping crew to begin the extensive process of restoring the overgrown garden where Mom used to spend her quiet Sunday afternoons. Planting dozens of new rose bushes near the old oak tree provided a sense of healing that no amount of money could ever replicate. Standing in the middle of the freshly cleaned living room allows a profound sense of absolute tranquility to spread through my mind after months of battling. Protecting the sacred legacy of Mom and Dad from the destructive forces of calculated deception remains the most important achievement of my entire life. The warm Texas sun casts long shadows across the polished hardwood floors that I spent several weeks personally scrubbing to remove years of dust or neglect. Every single corner of this building holds a specific memory that Diane tried to erase for the sake of a quick financial payout from a developer. Touching the original crown molding in the dining room brings back the echoes of family dinners where we used to laugh before greed entered our lives. The restoration process involves more than just applying a fresh coat of eggshell white paint, because I am carefully preserving the structural integrity of our history. Watching the friendly neighbors wave as they walk past the restored white fence confirms that this house is finally a home again, instead of a construction site. I found a hidden box of old photographs behind the loose floorboard in the master bedroom that Diane completely overlooked during her rushed attempt to sell. These captured moments of our parents smiling remind me exactly why I spent every penny of my savings to stop those massive yellow excavators. The legal victory was necessary, but the emotional reclamation of this space is what truly allows me to sleep peacefully at night for the first time. I have placed a beautifully framed portrait of Mom and Dad on the marble mantel to signify that their spirit is finally back where it belongs. Every time I look at the legal documents proving my ownership, I feel a surge of pride for standing up against such a calculated betrayal. The workers outside are currently finishing the trim on the windows where I used to sit as a child to watch the summer storms roll in. I have decided to turn the guest room into a small library filled with the books that Dad used to read during his retirement years. Rebuilding the porch swing was a difficult task, but hearing the familiar creak as I sit there in the evenings brings a tear of joy to my eyes. The local community has been incredibly supportive throughout this entire ordeal, which has helped me realize that there is still plenty of goodness in the world. I am planning to host a small dinner for Mr. Vance, as a token of my sincere appreciation for his vital testimony. Even though the financial cost was high, the priceless value of holding on to my heritage is something I will regret for a single second. The traumatic experience of being betrayed by a sibling taught me that greed possesses a truly devastating power capable of eroding even the most sacred blood relations. I realize that entrusting total legal or financial control to anyone, regardless of family ties, without maintaining absolute transparency, is a fatal mistake that invites disaster. Furthermore, attempting to avoid the pain of the past only creates dangerous opportunities for malicious individuals to exploit our emotional vulnerabilities for their personal gain. Real justice sometimes demands the most heart-wrenching decisions, which includes completely severing ties with a toxic family member to preserve the core values and dignity of the household. I now understand that family is defined by loyalty or respect, rather than just the shared DNA flowing through our veins in times of crisis. My stormy journey finally comes to an end right here, and I want to thank you for patiently listening until the very last moment of this story. What are your honest thoughts on my difficult decision to never forgive my older sister, and instead ensure she faced the full weight of the law? Please share your personal opinions in the comments below,